Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the DNA of a truly healthy workplace. We're going to focus heavily on mental health, the absolutely critical concept of psychological safety, and how dedicated employer education actively builds truly inclusive environments. Because as we'll see, a healthy workplace is just so much more than having a physically accessible building. So, taking a quick look at our agenda for today, we've got defining a healthy workplace, overcoming stigma and microaggressions, educating for inclusive workplaces, a real-world case example with Samantha, cultural competence in counseling, and finally, a reflection on workplace culture. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Defining a healthy workplace. To kick things off, we absolutely have to talk about this linchpin concept, psychological safety. We so often think of workplace safety as purely physical, right? Like wearing a hard hat or making sure everyone has ergonomic chairs. But emotional well-being and positive communication are just as critical. Psychological safety is an environment where employees feel fully respected and supported. It means they're comfortable expressing concerns, asking questions, or requesting assistance without any fear of judgment, discrimination, or retaliation. This directly influences whether an employee with a disability feels safe enough to disclose it, ask for accommodations, or even just participate fully in team discussions. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates why this is a total game changer for absolutely everyone in an organization. When people feel psychologically safe, they don't just survive at work, they thrive. The traits we see here, engaged, confident, productive, satisfied, these are the direct results of a supportive culture. For individuals with disabilities, this culture significantly influences their overall job satisfaction, their daily performance, and for sure, their long-term employment success. Now, moving beyond just the general vibe of the office, we've got to recognize that mental health is a massive piece of this wellness puzzle. So many employees experience invisible challenges, things like stress, anxiety, depression, burnout, or trauma-related symptoms that directly affect their concentration and functioning. What you should really take away from this is that these aren't just personal issues. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, mental health conditions are formally considered disabilities when they substantially limit major life activities. So if these legal protections and frameworks exist, why on earth do people hesitate to use them? Section 2. Overcoming stigma and microaggressions. Well, the crucial point here is understanding the sheer power of disability stigma. Stigma is essentially this collection of negative assumptions, stereotypes, or lowered expectations. In an employment setting, this might look like social exclusion, obvious discomfort from colleagues, or that quiet, unspoken assumption that an employee with a disability is somehow less capable, less reliable, or just more difficult to accommodate. These attitudes literally destroy workplace culture and push incredible talent right out the door. And that stigma, it often rears its head as microaggressions. Take a look at this massive gap between intent and impact. Microaggressions are those subtle comments, behaviors, or actions that communicate bias. Examples might be speaking to an employee in a patronizing tone or acting genuinely surprised when they perform a task really well. Even when completely unintended by the speaker, these actions have a huge impact on the receiving end. They contribute to increased stress, intense isolation, and a significantly reduced sense of belonging at work. Section 3. Educating for inclusive workplaces. Okay, we've identified the barriers, so let's pivot to the solutions. Counselors play an incredibly important role in helping organizations improve their culture. They provide this exact menu of employer education focus areas. We're talking disability awareness training, improving communication strategies, accessibility education, and practical guidance on accommodations. The ultimate goal here isn't just checking a compliance box or reducing discrimination. It's ensuring that disability is treated as a vital core dimension of an organization's broader diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, strategy. And here is a really key insight. Inclusive practices are not just some niche accommodation for a select few. Counselors help employers understand the universal benefits of flexibility. Things like flexible scheduling, remote work options, supportive supervision, and crystal clear communication practices improve morale across the board. Because let's be honest, absolutely everyone benefits from the flexibility to occasionally handle life's interruptions without panicking. What helps one group often elevates the whole shebang. Section 4. Case example. Samantha's experience. Let's bring this all down to earth and see how these concepts of safety and stigma actually play out in the real world. Meet Samantha. She's a 33-year-old elementary school teacher, a married mom of 2 young kids who are in daycare. Recently, she's been experiencing increasing generalized anxiety and depression. She's completely overwhelmed balancing her job and family responsibilities, and it's noticeably affecting her concentration, her emotional energy, and her ability to manage her workplace demands. Now, she's never asked for accommodations before, and she is absolutely terrified to discuss her mental health with her supervisor. So she decides to meet with a rehabilitation counselor to explore her options. So she meets with the counselor, and I want you to notice the counselor's opening approach here. The counselor immediately validates her experience without an ounce of judgment. By saying, "It sounds like you've been carrying a significant amount of stress," the counselor is actively creating that psychologically safe space we talked about earlier. They're giving Samantha a secure, supportive platform to actually voice her fears. And Samantha's response? It perfectly hits the nail on the head when it comes to the silencing effect of disability stigma. Her hesitation isn't about her actual teaching skills. It's entirely rooted in the fear of negative assumptions and lowered expectations. She is afraid of that exact stigma we defined earlier, the fear that her colleagues will view her as less capable if she discloses an invisible disability. Right, so the counselor's response here is incredibly strategic. First, they normalize her fear by assuring her that the concern is very common. Second, they remind her that disclosure is entirely her choice. She is in the driver's seat. And finally, the counselor pivots the focus away from the anxiety itself and toward empowerment, specifically looking at professional communication strategies and identifying concrete accommodations that will support her job performance. Together, Samantha and the counselor actually map out these very specific, actionable workplace supports. They look at flexible scheduling, modified break times, ensuring access to her mental health appointments, organizational strategies for her workload, and setting up periodic check-ins with her supervisor. The brilliance of this list is that it focuses entirely on supporting her job performance and collaboration, rather than just highlighting a personal vulnerability. It's a highly proactive approach. Equipped with this game plan and a renewed sense of confidence, Samantha goes to her supervisor. And look at the specific language she uses here. It is highly professional and totally solution-focused. She frames the conversation around continuing to perform effectively and improving productivity. She's advocating for her well-being while making it crystal clear that she remains completely committed to her role as a teacher. And boom, this brilliantly illustrates a healthy workplace in action. The supervisor doesn't panic, they don't pry into her personal medical details, and they definitely don't dismiss her. The response is respectful, collaborative, and focused on working together to find a solution. This kind of psychologically safe interaction is exactly what drives long-term employer retention, high engagement, and positive mental health outcomes. Section 5. Cultural competence in counseling. Stepping back from Samantha's success story for a second, let's examine the professional framework that makes interventions like this even possible. Counselors play a crucial role in navigating these complex conversations. According to the CRC Business Engagement Domain, counselors must maintain deep cultural competence. This means recognizing how disability, identity, and mental health intersect with workplace expectations. But crucially, it also means that counselors have to constantly manage and check their own assumptions and biases while they work to identify systemic barriers and promote real equity within an employment setting. It is continuous, absolutely vital work. Section 6. Reflection on workplace culture. To wrap up this explainer, we really need to look at the big picture and how all these elements, psychological safety, stigma reduction, education, and competence, tie together for long-term success. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to reflect on. How can workplace culture truly impact employee retention for people with disabilities? Consider how the nuances of communication styles, leadership practices, and the very real presence or absence of psychological safety ultimately decide whether incredible, diverse talent stays to enrich your organization or simply walks out the door. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning how you can build a healthier environment today.